In part 1 of my Pathfinder 1E Guide to Plants, I looked at the botanical world from the DM's perspective. This time, I'm going to give you, the player, everything you need to put the power of ancient forests, sprawling fungal beds, and exotic magical gardens to work for yourself. And all it takes is a little know-how, water, sunlight, and a green thumb. Starting off, plants as items. The best place to begin is herbs. Rules for gathering and herbalism are given in my Secret to a Good Crafting System video if you'd like a more thorough explanation. Here, I'm going to be focusing on the exact types of plants you have access to and how they can benefit you. First up, Cloud Puff. The Cloud Puff has a gathering DC of 18. It sells for 100 gold pieces, and a yield of 1 dose. Cloud Puff can be found in any mountain terrain. When used, for the next 24 hours, you get a +2 alchemical bonus against mind effects, but a -2 on wisdom skill checks. Preparing a Cloud Puff takes a DC 12 craft alchemy check. Next, Dragon Rose. Dragon Rose has a gather DC of 18. This plant is sold in shops for 25 gold pieces. When gathered, it has a yield of 1 dose. Dragon Rose can be found in any forest or mountain terrain. When applied to a weapon as a standard action for the next hour, the weapon can bypass DR magic. To prepare a dose of Dragon Rose, a DC 15 craft alchemy check is required. Dream Lichen. Dream Lichen has a gathering DC of 30. Dream Lichen is sold in shops for 2,000 gold pieces. When gathered, it has a yield of 1 dose. It can be found at any point where the veil between the dream dimension and the material world is thin. Dream Lichen can be used to gain a new save against 1 curse or mind effect after 8 hours of sleep, or you can also use this rare lichen to gain an auto success on any check to remove a negative level. In order to properly prepare Dream Lichen, you must make a DC 25 craft alchemy check. Next up, Fairy Cap. Fairy Cap has a gather DC of 20. It's sold in shops for 250 gold pieces. When gathered, Fairy Cap has a yield of 1 dose, and it can be found near any ley line. After it's been prepared, Fairy Cap gains one of 2 different uses. These 2 uses are divided into orange spotted and brown spotted. An orange spotted Fairy Cap causes a creature to grow 1 size category as if under the effects of Enlarge Person. The brown Fairy Cap causes a creature to shrink 1 size category as if affected by Reduce Person. This effect lasts for 10 minutes, and eating is a full round action. To prepare the Fairy Cap, it requires a DC 20 craft alchemy check. Once prepared, there is a 50% chance you'll get either the brown or orange variant. Mimeth Bark. This bark has a gather DC of 25. It's sold in shops for 600 gold pieces. Harvesting bark from a mimeth tree gives 1 D4 doses, however, each dose weighs 5 pounds. You can find these trees in any forest or mountain terrain. To use the bark, apply a paste from it directly to the skin. This gives DR2, bypassed by bludgeoning, and fire resistance 5. Finally, you also get immunity to bleeding for 1 hour. To prepare the bark, it requires a DC 20 craft alchemy check. Next, one of the most beneficial is Mole. Unlike most herbs, Mole can be used either fresh or prepared. Mole has a gathering DC of 25. If it can be found in shops, it's sold for 1,200 gold pieces. Mole has a yield of 1 dose per plant, and can be found in any forest or plain. To use, fresh mole gives a +4 resistance bonus on spells and spell-like ability saving throws. Powdered mole can be sprinkled on a creature, object, or area as a standard action to end a spell as if using Dispel Magic of caster level 6th. Preparing powdered mole requires a DC 25 craft alchemy check. The next herb is nepenthe. It has a gather DC of 20 and is sold in shops for 400 gold pieces. When gathered, nepenthe has a yield of 1 dose. It can be found in any warm forest or swamp. When used, you can attempt a new save immediately against a single mind effect. An unwilling creature can be dosed with a touch attack that provokes attacks of opportunity. To prepare a dose of nepenthe, it requires a DC 16 craft alchemy check. The final herb I'd like to talk to you about is night sage. This sinister plant has a gather DC of 14 and can be sold in shops for 100 gold pieces. Night sage has a yield of 1 dose and can be found in any jungle terrain. When burned, night sage grants corporeal undead in a 5-foot radius a +2 profane bonus on saves against positive energy. This includes channel energy effects. So, if you're an aspiring necromancer, giving your undead creations sensors filled with burning night sage is both useful and looks super cool. A single dose of night sage burns for 10 minutes. Preparing night sage requires a DC 12 alchemy check and a flask of holy water. That covers plants as mundane items. Now, let's look at plants as magical items. If you would like to grow magical plants, you'll need the Cultivate Magical Plants item creation feat. The prerequisites for this feat are Brew Potion, Craft Wondrous Item, and 1 rank in Knowledge Nature. Cultivating magical plants takes 1 week per 1,000 gold pieces of its price. Your magical plant produces fruit, seeds, sprouts, etc. that replicate spell effects when thrown, eaten, or used. After your plant is fully grown, it starts a 13-week growing season where it produces its resource. Outside of this season, some plants may continue to grow but remain barren or go dormant until the next growing season. However, some plants are perennial. The product of magical plants is potent for 1 day after being picked. If the product is not picked in 1 week, it spoils and becomes useless. Different magical plants require different numbers of ranks in Knowledge Nature to cultivate, either 1, 3, or 6. First, let's look at the Acid Lemon Tree. This requires Cultivate Magical Plant and Acid Arrow and 1 rank in Knowledge Nature to cultivate. Your Acid Lemon Tree will cost 6,000 gold pieces to craft. As you would expect, it produces acid lemons that can be thrown at a range of 20 feet as a touch attack. Acid lemons deal 2d6 acid damage, then an additional 2d6 acid damage next round. The Acid Lemon Tree has a yield of 1 lemon every day for 13 weeks, each spring. A very similar plant is the Fire Apple Tree. Creating this magical plant requires Cultivate Magical Plants, Fireball, and 1 rank in Knowledge Nature. The price to craft a Fire Apple Tree is 2,500 gold. It produces exploding apple bombs that deal 5d6 fire damage on a direct hit, and half of that in a 10-foot radius burst. A DC 14 reflex save negates the fire damage. Treat this as a splash weapon. A Fire Apple Tree yields 1 apple per day for 13 weeks in the summer. Goodberry Bush. Crafting a Goodberry Bush requires Cultivate Magical Plants, Goodberry, and 1 rank in Knowledge Nature. Creating it requires 14,000 gold pieces. Your Goodberry Bush provides nourishment and healing in the form of berries. One berry equals a full meal and heals 1 point of damage. You can consume up to 8 berries per day. The bush will produce 6 berries per day year-round. Next we have the very pleasant Restful Birch. Creating one requires Cultivate Magical Plants, the Sleep spell, and 1 rank in Knowledge Nature. It will cost 2,000 gold pieces to craft. The bark of the Restful Birch reduces the hours of sleep you need. Consuming a strip of bark reduces the number of hours needed by 2. A tea made from the bark of the Restful Birch reduces the hours of sleep needed by 4. Consuming multiple doses of bark will make you sick for 8 hours. 4 strips of bark can be safely harvested from the tree per day. Next, the Shelter Shrub. Creating this plant requires Cultivate Magical Plants, Endure Elements, and 1 rank in Knowledge Nature. Creating a Shelter Shrub requires 6,000 gold pieces. It produces berries that, when consumed, have an effect identical to Endure Elements. The Shelter Shrub produces 6 berries per day for 13 weeks during the summer and the winter. Next, the Tree of Knowledge. Creating a Tree of Knowledge requires Cultivate Magical Plants, Augury, and Knowledge Nature 1 rank. It will cost 1,500 gold pieces to craft. This plant produces yellow apples and red apples. When consumed, red apples give a +5 insight bonus on your next knowledge check. When consumed, yellow apples grant a single use of augury. The Tree of Knowledge produces 1 red apple per day and 1 yellow apple per week for 13 weeks during spring. Finally, the Tree of Woe. Creating a Tree of Woe requires Cultivate Magical Plants, Charm Monster, Zone of Truth, and 6 ranks in Knowledge Nature. It will also cost 10,000 gold pieces. When a creature is tied to the Tree of Woe, it takes a -4 to will saves against sense motives and opposed charisma checks. In addition, 1 time per day, you can attempt a DC 20 Knowledge Nature check to force a creature tied to the tree to tell the truth, as if it had failed a save in a Zone of Truth. The Tree of Woe is potent year-round, but it can only use its Zone of Truth-like effect on 1 new victim every month. Now that we're done with plants as items, let's talk about some plant-based class features. Starting with Plant Familiars. First up, Creeping Ivy. A Creeping Ivy plant familiar will give you a +3 to climb checks. Next, Dwemercap. A Dwemercap familiar gives a +3 bonus to spellcraft checks to identify magic items. It also emits an aura of faint light when in contact with an object or creature with a magical aura. Flowering Lattice. A Flowering Lattice familiar will give you a +3 bonus to diplomacy checks. This is a great familiar for the Seducer Witch archetype, who runs their spells off of charisma rather than intelligence. If you're considering this archetype and familiar combination, I definitely recommend the Plant Patron. The Flowering Lattice also produces berries every week. Consuming the berry acts as Goodberry. Next, Petrifern. This gives you a +1 natural armor bonus to your AC. Your Petrifern can petrify itself, increasing its AC by 5, and it gains resistance 10 to fire and cold. It can also take a 20 on stealth checks to appear to be a branch or tree sprout when petrified. Next, Ravenous Tumbleweed. This gives you a 10-foot bonus when charging, running, or withdrawing. Razor Fern. A Razor Fern familiar will give you +3 to stealth checks. Finally, Suture Vine. This will give you a +3 bonus to heal checks. You might also consider plant companions. Normally, plant companions are limited to specialized archetypes, like the Tree Singer Druid or the Plant Master Hunter, but of course, your DM has the final say. Some interesting plant companions are the Gulper Plant. This starts as a medium-sized plant and grows to a large at 7th level. It has the Swallow Whole ability and deals acid damage. You'd also have a lot of fun with a Snapping Fly Trap. This starts as a medium plant and grows to a large at 7th level. It has multiple heads that bite and grab. Finally, I'd recommend for your consideration the Sniper Cactus. This is a small plant that grows to medium at 4th level. It can shoot its thorns as a ranged attack that deals 1d8 damage when it's small, and that damage increases to 2d6 when it grows to a medium. Next, for the Unchained Summoner, Plant Eidolon. If you would like a Plant Eidolon, you'll be able to choose from a number of base forms. The Cactus Eidolon has the Arms, Legs, and Sting evolutions. Conifer. A Conifer Eidolon has the Arms, Legs, and Claws evolutions. A Fungus Eidolon has Bite, Arms, and Legs evolutions. Leaf. A Leaf Eidolon has Arms, Legs, and the Slam evolution. Finally, Seaweed. Seaweed Eidolons have Swim, Arms, and the Slam evolution. At 1st level, your Plant Eidolon gains Low Light Vision and resistance to electric and sonic damage. At 4th level, the Eidolon gains Pass Without Trace and Tree Shape, allowing it to transform into whatever plant its type is. At 8th level, the Eidolon can speak with plants for 1 minute per hit die per day. Only plants that correspond to its base type. At 12th level, the Eidolon gains immunity to sleep, poison, stun, and paralysis. Finally, at 16th level, your Eidolon can speak with plants of its type at will and can cast Commune with Nature 1 time per day. Now, if you're considering an all-natural alchemist, might I recommend the Bramble Brewer archetype for the half-elf. As a Bramble Brewer, you get Briar Bombs. This replaces your 2nd level discovery. You gain the Tanglefoot Bomb discovery. The duration of the entanglement and glued to the floor conditions, as well as the engulfed condition for creatures caught in the splash damage zone, lasts for a number of rounds equal to your intelligence modifier. Also, all squares affected are considered difficult terrain for as long as the effect lasts. The bombs deal no damage, but for each d6 of damage your bombs increase by, the area of the Tanglefoot effect increases by 5 feet. You also get Dendrite Mutagen. This alters your mutagen ability. Your mutagen now gives you a +4 natural armor bonus and a +2 alchemical bonus to 1 physical ability score, and a -2 alchemical penalty to the corresponding mental score. You also get fast healing as long as you're in an area of bright light. This class feature scales with the Greater Mutagen and Grand Mutagen discoveries. The final class feature I would like to talk about is the Summon Leshy Witch Hex. This adds Leaf Leshy, Gourd Leshy, Fungus Leshy, Seaweed Leshy, and Lotus Leshy to summon monsters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Also, you count as a plant creature for the purpose of growing leshys. Growing leshys. Leshys begin as disembodied spirits of nature. A skilled spellcaster can create a plant body for the spirit to inhabit. This is done in a place of natural power like a treant's grove, a druid circle, or a place of natural power. Growing leshys is similar to crafting constructs, but no feat is required, only the knowledge and ability to cast the spells required in its creation. Growing a leshy requires 2 weeks per hit die. Like constructs, leshys require a gold price in raw materials. Leshys also require a 24-hour ritual and the expending of the specific spells based on the leshy type. At creation, there is a 50% chance a spirit will inhabit the body. Your attempt to create a leshy fails if this roll is failed. At the DM discretion, however, an appropriate place can boost the chance of success to 75 or even 100%. However, finding prime leshy growing real estate is an adventure in and of itself. There is, however, a caveat to this. Plant creatures, i.e. you, if you have the Summon Leshy hex, get a +5 racial bonus to the knowledge check to grow the leshy. You half the time required. You reduce the creation cost by 25%, and you automatically succeed at the final percentile fail check. This hex is definitely the way to go if you want to grow leshys. Finally, you can add additional hit die to your leshy. This costs 2,250 gold pieces per hit die and increases the knowledge check by +2 and adds 2 weeks to the grow time. Now that you know how to grow leshys, let's talk about some of your options for leshys to grow. First up, Flytrap. A Flytrap leshy is challenge rating 4. It has a sneak attack that deals 1d6 points of damage and an ability called Amalgam. Up to 25 Flytrap leshys can combine to create a massive Flytrap monstrosity. Each Flytrap leshy beyond the first adds 1 hit die to the Amalgam. It increases in size category at 9, 12, 18, and 30 hit die. And it gets bite attacks equal to the number of Flytrap leshys in the Amalgam. The requirements to create a Flytrap leshy are 5 ranks in Knowledge Nature, the spells Burst of Needles, Plant Growth, and Summon Nature's Ally 4. The skill check required is a Knowledge Nature DC 18, and it will cost you 3,250 gold pieces. Now, 65,000 gold is a lot of money, but having a colossal Venus Flytrap monster with 25 bite attacks is priceless. Now onto my personal favorite type of leshy, the Gourd Leshy. A Gourd Leshy is a CR1. They have a sneak attack for 1d6 points of damage. They can also tree shape into a pumpkin to hide. Finally, they have an ability called Keepsake. Items stored in its little jack-o'-lantern head are protected by a non-detect effect. The requirements to create a Gourd Leshy are Knowledge Nature, 5 ranks. The ability to cast the spells Entangle, Plant Growth, and Summon Nature's Ally 1. The check to create a Gourd Leshy is a Knowledge Nature DC 13, and it will cost you 750 gold pieces. A cool thematic step in the creation of a Gourd Leshy is carving the face into the pumpkin. Absolutely perfect for any Halloween-themed character. Next, the Lotus Leshy. A Lotus Leshy is a challenge rating 5, and it has an aura of tranquility. This is a 20-foot radius aura of calm emotion. It also has an ability called Dream Pollen. This is a 15-foot cone of sleep powder that lasts for 1d4 rounds. Finally, Lotus Leshys are surprisingly skilled and adept at Knowledge Religion and heal checks. The requirements to create a Lotus Leshy are 5 ranks in Knowledge Nature, the ability to cast Lilypad Stride, Plant Growth, and Summon Nature's Ally 5. The skill check required to create a Lotus Leshy is a DC 19 Knowledge Nature check, and it will cost you 4,500 gold pieces. The final leshy type you should consider is Snapdragon Leshys. A Snapdragon Leshy is challenge rating 4. This leshy type has a bardic performance. They perform as a 4th level bard and know countersong, distraction, fascinate, inspire competence, and inspire courage. They also have an ability called Green Speaker. This allows its bardic performance to affect plants as if said plants were not immune to mind effects. The requirements to create a Snapdragon Leshy are 5 ranks in Knowledge Nature and 1 rank in Performance Comedy, Oratory, or Sing. You must be able to cast the spells Plant Growth, Speak with Plants, and Summon Nature's Ally 4. Finally, it requires a DC 18 Knowledge Nature check and 3,250 gold pieces. Now that I've covered plant class features, let's talk about plant races. Starting with the Goron. Gorons have ability score bonuses of +2 to Constitution, +2 to Charisma, and -2 to Intelligence. They are medium category creatures. They get a +2 natural armor bonus. Obviously, Gorons are plant-type creatures. They also have a strange feature called Delicious. This gives them a -2 on escape artist checks against creatures with a grapple and bite attack. They also get Nature Magic. If you have a Charisma score of 11 or higher, you can cast Detect Poison, Goodberry, and Purify Food and Drink 1 time per day as a spell-like ability. Gorons are light dependent. You take 1d4 points of con damage every day you don't get any exposure to sunlight. Finally, they have an ability called Past Life Knowledge. This is very good, allowing a Goron to treat all knowledge skills as class skills. The other plant race, if you didn't get enough of them already, are Vine Leshys. Vine Leshys have ability score bonuses of +2 to Constitution and Wisdom, and a -2 penalty to Intelligence. They are size category small, like all Leshys. Vine Leshys are plant-type creatures with the Leshy subtype. They move slowly at 20 feet per round. Vine Leshys have dark and low light vision. If you play a Vine Leshy, you will also have Pass Without Trace. This is a constant magical effect at caster level 2. Vine Leshys can change shape into vines only, and they can speak with plants, but only to vines. Vine Leshys are skilled climbers, getting a +2 racial bonus to climb checks. They also are stealthy, with an ability called Unassuming Foliage, giving them a +4 racial bonus to stealth checks in the forest. Finally, Leshys have an ability called Verdant Blast. When you die, you explode in a burst of positive energy, healing all plants around you for 1d8 points of damage, and making a 30-foot zone of difficult terrain for 24 hours. Now, I would like to leave you with some inspiration for plant-themed characters in your next Pathfinder game. This is a pretty common thing in comics, with characters like Swamp Thing, mainstay of Batman's Rogues Gallery, Poison Ivy, and of course, Groot. From the Warhammer universe in the Age of Sigmar setting. In the Age of Sigmar setting, the High Elf commander, Eloriel, has a lot of very plant-themed stuff associated with her. She has branch-like wings and an army of tree guys at her beck and call. Oh, and lest we forget, the orcs from Warhammer 40k are fungal-based. Now, in Magic the Gathering, there are a lot of cool plant-based monsters, characters, and creatures. I would recommend looking at the Golgari from Ravnica. They have a lot of plants and fungus and rot-themed things for you to get your green-black fix on. Also in that same color grouping is the Winterbloom Academy from the Strixhaven setting. They're also covered in the 5e Strixhaven Supplement, which is a good place to mine for ideas, if not mechanics. Finally, the Ogier from Wheel of Time have a great harmonious relationship with the trees around them. They sing to them, they grow them, and they just have this great magical connection with nature, similar to the Ents from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Thank you very much for watching the D6 Damage Guide to Plants, Part 2. If you'd like to support my work outside of YouTube, check out Sorcerous, a dark fantasy mystery RPG available right now on Steam. Also, if you're in the market for more Pathfinder books or supplies, follow the affiliate link down in the description to Noble Knight Games. And if you'd like to take your game further, join the D6 Damage Discord, where we have regular discussions about all aspects of Pathfinder 1E, including mechanics, role-playing, and game mastering.